Welcome. Here you'll learn English through real-life stories. Simple, clear, interesting. Let's begin. I was born into money, that much is true. But my life was never as simple as people like to think. My name is Donald John Trump, and long before the world knew it, my story began in Queens, New York. From the very start, my childhood was different from most. This wasn't an ordinary home, and I wasn't raised in an ordinary way. My father, Fred Trump, was already a major figure in real estate. He was tough, disciplined, and absolutely relentless. He built everything himself, brick by brick, deal by deal. Fred wasn't just my dad. He was a powerful presence in our house, almost larger than life, and you felt that the moment you walked in the room. As a kid, I could feel his expectations pressing down on me every day. They were heavy and there was no escaping them. My father believed deeply in hard work, strict discipline, and pushing yourself past your limits. To him, winning mattered. Success was everything. Failure wasn't an option, not even for his children. I was the fourth of 5 kids, and ambition surrounded me from all sides. In the Trump family, drive wasn't encouraged, it was expected. Everyone was supposed to perform, to achieve, to move forward. But even in that environment, I felt something different inside me. For me, success alone wasn't enough. I didn't just want to do well. I wanted to stand out. I wanted people to notice me, to remember my name. Even when I was young, my personality filled the room. I was confident, outspoken, and yes, sometimes defiant. While my brothers and sisters usually followed my father's rules, I questioned them. I pushed back. I didn't want to simply follow in Fred Trump's footsteps. I wanted my own road, my own future. The question was how. When I was 13, my parents sent me to the New York Military Academy. It was known for its strict structure, hard discipline, and zero tolerance for weakness. My father believed the school would calm me down, straighten me out, and teach me to follow orders. Did it work? Not the way he expected. The academy didn't break me. Instead, it sharpened me. I learned how to compete, how to lead, and how to win. I found ways to stand out even there. In sports, in academics, and in social life, I pushed myself to the top. I wasn't just another student. I made sure of that. Over time, I started to believe something very strongly. I believed there was nothing I couldn't do if I wanted it badly enough. Eventually, I left the academy behind and moved on to college. I started at Fordham University, then later transferred to the Wharton School of Business at the University of Pennsylvania. Wharton was prestigious, competitive, and demanding, and that's exactly why I liked it. There, I began to see myself as more than just Fred Trump's son. I studied real estate, finance, and marketing. I imagined buildings rising into the sky, towers with my name on them, wealth on a scale most people never even think about. But my dreams were bigger than most. I didn't want a comfortable career. I didn't want to play it safe. I wanted an empire. With my father's guidance and financial backing, I entered the real estate business. I started by working at his company, Elizabeth Trump & Son, which focused on middle-income housing in Brooklyn and Queens. For many people, inheriting a business like that would be more than enough. For me, it wasn't. It felt too small, too cautious, too limited. I wasn't interested in staying comfortable. My eyes were fixed on something larger, something more dangerous. I wanted Manhattan. Manhattan was different. It was the center of New York City. That's where the biggest deals happened. That's where legends were made and where plenty of people failed trying. Skyscrapers, luxury apartments, glamour, power. That was the world I wanted to enter. My father believed in stability and practicality. I believed in spectacle. I wanted to impress. I wanted to dominate the skyline. People told me I was reckless, that I was dreaming too big, that I should slow down. I didn't listen. In the late 1970s, I set my sights on one of my first major projects, the Commodore Hotel. The building was old, worn down, and nearly forgotten. Most people saw a disaster. I saw opportunity. I negotiated with the city, secured major tax breaks, and brought investors on board. Slowly, that forgotten hotel was transformed. The Commodore became the Grand Hyatt, a shining symbol of ambition, wealth, and bold vision. That project changed everything. It proved to me and to the city that I could take risks and win. And it was only the beginning. With that success, I wasn't just another businessman anymore. Suddenly, I was becoming a name. My name started showing up in newspapers, on television, and in conversations all over New York. People were talking. One project led to another, and the momentum just kept building. The next big move was Trump Tower. That building wasn't just another deal to me. Rising above Fifth Avenue, tall and shining, it was meant to be something more. Trump Tower wasn't only steel and glass. It was a message. With its dark, reflective exterior and commanding presence, it seemed to announce to the city, Trump is here and he's not going anywhere. That was exactly what I wanted people to feel when they looked at it. As the 1980s rolled on, my reputation grew beyond real estate. I wasn't known only for buildings anymore. I became known for me. My personality, my confidence, my willingness to say whatever was on my mind. I didn't hide it and I didn't apologize for it. I showed up in magazines. I went to high-profile events. I became a regular figure in New York's social scene. Everywhere I went, people recognized me. They talked about me. Some admired me. Some criticized me. But they all paid attention. At that point, I wasn't just a businessman. I was a celebrity. My life felt bigger than life itself, and from the outside it probably looked like pure glamour. But behind all the shine there were problems. There were critics. Some people saw me as a visionary, someone bringing fresh energy and bold ideas to the city. Others saw me as reckless, a risk-taker who pushed too far and gambled too much. I heard all of it. And honestly, I didn't care. I was focused. I had a mission. I wasn't about to slow down just because people doubted me or disagreed with my approach. As the years passed, my ambitions only grew stronger. I moved into casinos. I invested in airlines. I even stepped into professional football. The Trump name started appearing everywhere, on buildings, in magazines, on television screens. It felt like I was everywhere at once. From the outside, I looked unstoppable. But with every new venture, the risks got bigger. The stakes rose higher. The wins were louder and the potential losses were more dangerous. To me, success meant everything. It always had. Failure, though, it was always nearby, waiting quietly in the background. Still, no matter the pressure, no matter how many people doubted me, I kept moving forward. I trusted my instincts. I believed in my vision. I believed in my brand. And I believed I could turn almost any situation in my favor. That relentless drive, that refusal to slow down or back off, would eventually pull me into a world far beyond business. It would lead me somewhere completely unexpected, into politics. But that comes later. For now, I was still a businessman. A man who took opportunity and built an empire. A man who turned big dreams into very real results. My journey was nowhere near finished, but even then, I was already proving something important. Not just to the world but to myself. I wasn't simply living in my father's shadow anymore. I was my own man. I was Donald Trump. And in many ways the real story was only getting started. Still, I wasn't satisfied. Not even close. Yes, I had built an empire. I had made headlines. My name carried weight all across New York City. I had money, influence, and fame. But for me, that was never the end goal. It was just the beginning. I've always believed there's another level. A bigger challenge. A larger stage. Being successful wasn't enough. I wanted to be unforgettable. By the mid-1980s, my ambition was pushing higher than ever. New York was conquered, at least in my mind. Now I was thinking bigger. National. Projects that wouldn't just make noise in the city, but across the entire country. Real estate was still my foundation, but my attention was shifting. I started looking beyond office towers and hotels. That's when Atlantic City caught my eye. Atlantic City was a world of bright lights and loud sounds. Slot machines ringing. Tables packed with players. A place where people won fortunes and lost everything in a single night. The casino business was dangerous. Competition was brutal. Failure was common. But I didn't see danger. I saw opportunity. Risk never scared me. In fact, I've always felt most alive when the stakes were high. So in 1984, I opened Trump Plaza, my first casino. It was bold, luxurious, and designed to impress. I promised visitors the best of everything. The highest quality. The ultimate experience. And once again I didn't stop. Not long after, I made another move. Trump Castle came next, another major bet in my growing casino empire. Bigger. Louder. More ambitious. But even that wasn't enough. Then came the boldest idea of all. The Taj Mahal. I called it the eighth wonder of the world, and I meant it. Marble everywhere. Gold details. Massive scale. It was the most expensive casino Atlantic City had ever seen. No one had attempted anything like it before. The question was simple. Was it genius? Or was it a massive mistake? When the Taj Mahal opened in 1990, it looked like a triumph. Crowds flooded in. Cameras flashed. Reporters surrounded me. I stood there proud, watching people marvel at what I had built. From the outside, it looked like the ultimate victory. But behind the scenes, the pressure was building fast. The Taj Mahal cost hundreds of millions of dollars, and most of it was built on debt. Interest rates were high. Profits were unpredictable. The numbers were tight. Even I knew the risk was enormous. For the first time, a real question began to hang in the air. Could confidence and vision alone carry something this heavy? Could even I handle the financial weight of a project this massive? As the 1990s began, trouble was forming. The real estate market shifted. Debt piled up. One problem led to another. Suddenly, everything I had built felt fragile. My casinos. My buildings. My entire empire. All of it was at risk. For the first time in my life, I was facing a word I never thought would apply to me. Bankruptcy. My businesses were close to the edge and my reputation was on the line. The storm had arrived. For me, The Apprentice was never just a television show. It was something much bigger. It became a new platform, a powerful way to extend my influence far beyond real estate. Through that show, I reached people I had never reached before. Suddenly, I was a household name in a completely different way. I wasn't just known as a businessman anymore. I wasn't only a real estate developer or a mogul. I became a star, a celebrity, an icon. People across the country recognized my face, my voice, my style. And I knew it. I knew I was holding something powerful. The real question was simple. What would I do with it? As the show kept growing, something inside me shifted. I started seeing myself differently. I wasn't just making deals anymore. I was shaping opinions, influencing how people thought, connecting with them on a personal level week after week. That's when a new idea began to form. Could I lead something bigger than a business? Something larger than an empire built of steel and glass? The thought sounded bold, maybe even impossible. But bold ideas never scared me. They never had. In my mind, I began to picture a future that wasn't only about money or fame. I started thinking about leadership, about power, about leaving behind a different kind of legacy. Business had given me success. Strategy had taken me far. But maybe I was ready for a new stage, one that demanded more than deals and negotiations, one that could actually change history. That thought didn't disappear. It grew. It became clearer, stronger. And one day it would turn into a decision that wouldn't just change my life, but the life of an entire nation. I had built an empire in New York City, but I was never just an ordinary businessman. I had become a brand, a symbol of ambition, a man who saw limits and chose to ignore them. From my father's influence to my rise across Manhattan's skyline, I had conquered the world of real estate. And now I was starting to look beyond it. Something new was coming. But even then I wanted more. I always did. I was chasing something bigger, something that would separate me from everyone else. By the 1980s, my name was everywhere. Donald Trump was on people's lips, in newspapers, and in conversations across the city. My buildings were bold, and my style was even bolder. When you walked into Trump Tower, you saw it immediately. Gold-plated details, shiny surfaces, marble floors that made a statement the second you stepped inside. Everything had to sparkle. Everything had to feel grand. That was my taste. Lavish, extravagant, impossible to ignore. I wasn't just putting up buildings. I was building a legacy. I wanted people to look at what I created and remember it, to feel it, to associate it with my name. But success always brings attention, and attention brings criticism. As my fame grew, so did the questions. Some people called me a visionary. They said I could make deals no one else even dared to attempt. Others saw something different. They called me reckless. They said I took risks that no sane businessman would survive. I didn't listen to either side. I had one rule I lived by. I never backed down. If a project pushed me closer to the top, I went after it. No hesitation. No fear. Then, in 1988, I made one of my boldest moves yet. I bought the Plaza Hotel. The plaza wasn't just any building. It was history. A symbol of elegance, tradition, and old New York glamour. For most people, it was untouchable. For me, it was a trophy. Owning the plaza meant something. It showed the world that I wasn't just a developer throwing up new buildings. I was a man who could take a legendary landmark and make it his own. The price was enormous. The kind of debt that would scare most businessmen away. But to me, that was simply the cost of greatness. I wanted to own a piece of history. I wanted my name tied to one of New York City's most famous hotels. But the plaza wasn't like my other projects. It demanded patience, care, refinement. It wasn't about fast deals or quick wins. And patience, honestly, was never my strongest quality. I wanted results and I wanted them fast. But the profits didn't come quickly enough. The numbers didn't move the way I expected. And once again, the debt started to grow. Before long, I found myself facing financial trouble all over again. My love for massive, glamorous projects was catching up to me. And the cost was high. Still, I refused to let go. I refused to admit defeat. Walking away was never part of my mindset. At the same time, I wasn't slowing down. I was expanding. I pushed my brand beyond New York, looking to Atlantic City, to Florida, to anywhere my empire could reach. I was still chasing something bigger. And I wasn't finished yet. My vision was always bigger than buildings. It was never just about steel, glass, or concrete. It was about creating a name. A name that people everywhere would recognize the moment they heard it. That's why I started putting my name on everything. Hotels, casinos, even an airline. Each move was bigger than the last. Each investment came with more risk. The stakes kept rising, but so did my ambition. If anything, the pressure only fueled it. To me, there was no alternative. I believed I was meant for something more. But as the 1990s arrived, reality started pushing back. The debt grew heavier. The pressure increased. The weight of my empire began to close in from all sides. My casinos in Atlantic City faced brutal competition. The airlines struggled to fill seats. Luxury projects cost more money than they returned. Problems piled up fast. Banks grew impatient. Investors became nervous. And suddenly, the man who once seemed untouchable was facing serious trouble. The press changed its tone too. The confidence they once admired became something they questioned. People started asking if I had finally gone too far. Was I in over my head? Even standing at the edge of financial collapse, I didn't let go. I couldn't. I negotiated relentlessly. I reworked deals. I found investors willing to take a risk when others walked away. Piece by piece, I protected what mattered most. Through pure willpower, I kept moving forward when many believed I couldn't. My belief in myself never cracked. That resilience carried me through. By the end of the 1990s, I had survived near financial ruin. I took hits. I felt the damage. But I wasn't broken. My empire was smaller, yes, but my name still carried weight. To the world, I was still Donald Trump. The man who conquered Manhattan. The man who stared down disaster and lived to tell the story. But survival alone wasn't enough for me. I wanted more than that. I wanted a comeback. I wanted to rise again and remind people that I was still a force to be reckoned with. Then, almost like fate, a new opportunity appeared. This time it wasn't about buildings. It was about screens. Television screens. The Apprentice was a simple idea but a powerful one. A reality show where I was the ultimate boss. The man who decided who won, who lost, and who walked away. Contestants competed. Pressure built. And I made the final call. For me, it was a new way to express my brand. A chance to become more than just a name carved into buildings. And in 2004, something changed again. I became a star in a way I had never experienced before. Week after week, millions of people watched as I stood at the head of a sleek boardroom. Calm, confident, in control. My voice steady. My decisions final. Once again I had found a new stage. And once again the story was moving forward. "You're fired" turned into a phrase everyone knew. You heard it everywhere. People repeated it at work, at home, even as jokes. My face, my voice, my style, they became part of American culture. At that point, I wasn't just a businessman anymore. I had become a personality, a public figure. Someone who didn't just influence deals but influenced people. Through The Apprentice, I connected directly with viewers across the country. Week after week, they watched me not only as a businessman but as a person. They saw my confidence, my style, my sense of control, my flair. Slowly, people stopped seeing me as just a real estate mogul. They began to see me as a leader. Someone who could make tough calls. Someone who wasn't afraid to take risks. Someone who stayed calm under pressure. And as my popularity grew, a new idea started to rise again, an idea that had been sitting quietly in the back of my mind for years. Politics. I had flirted with it before. I talked about it in interviews. I hinted at it in speeches. I let the idea float out there. But now it felt different, stronger, more real. Through the show, I had built a direct connection with the American people. Millions of them. People who respected me. People who admired my confidence and my results. And I started asking myself a serious question. Could I lead the country the same way I had led my businesses? Could I take my name, my brand, my visibility, and turn it into something even bigger? I knew the path wouldn't be easy. Politics was a world of its own, full of rules, resistance, attacks, limits, but intimidation had never stopped me before. I had faced barriers my entire life, and every time I found a way through them. To me, this wasn't fear. It was just another challenge, another mountain. In quiet moments, I let myself imagine it. I pictured a future where I wasn't just a businessman, not just a celebrity, but a leader of a nation. Was it only a dream? Or was it destiny? Only time would answer that question. But one thing was clear. I was ready. Ready to take the next step. Ready to face the biggest challenge of my life. The road from businessman to leader was uncertain. The risks were enormous. But I had faced risks before. And I knew one thing about myself. I would do whatever it took to win. It was the early 1980s and New York City felt full of possibility. The skyline stood tall and proud, packed with buildings that reflected power, ambition, and big dreams. This was a city built by people who dared to make their mark. And right in the heart of Manhattan, something new was rising. Something bold. Something daring. Something that would change the city forever. This was Trump Tower. It was my masterpiece. My statement. My claim to fame. When construction began, most people could only guess what it might become. But for me there was no mystery. I already knew. Trump Tower was never meant to be just another building. It wasn't going to blend in. It wasn't going to play it safe. It was designed to stand out, to shine, to carry my name and my vision straight into the sky. I wanted something impossible to ignore. Something that made people stop, look up, and remember who built it. And with its dark, shimmering glass and commanding height, Trump Tower did exactly that. In 1983, the building was finally completed, rising 58 stories above Fifth Avenue. And this wasn't just a construction project finished. It was a statement, a symbol, and proof that I had arrived. It was more than just a building. It was a statement. Rising high above Fifth Avenue, where the city's elite walked and tourists gathered every day, it demanded attention. It didn't whisper. It practically shouted, "Look at me." And people did. Everyone did. To those passing by, Trump Tower wasn't simply another skyscraper. It became a symbol of success, of wealth, of power. And whether people liked it or not, a symbol of me. Inside, everything sparkled. Pink marble floors, gold accents, waterfalls flowing down the walls. Every detail was intentional. Every corner was designed to impress. I wanted people to feel like they had stepped into a different world, a world of luxury and confidence. I wanted them to remember it, to talk about it, to dream about being part of it. And it worked. Trump Tower quickly became the place to be. The address everyone wanted. To live there or work there meant you were at the center of power. It wasn't just a building anymore. It was a lifestyle. But none of it came easy. Making Trump Tower a reality took a fight. Securing that prime location on Fifth Avenue was only the first step. I had to win city approval, navigate complicated regulations, and line up the financing to bring my vision to life. The path was difficult, filled with obstacles, and plenty of people doubted I could pull it off. I didn't listen. I negotiated. I persuaded. I charmed. And when someone told me no, I pushed harder. To me, every obstacle was just another challenge waiting to be beaten. Eventually, Trump Tower stood complete. And the world noticed. At that point, Trump was no longer just a name. It had become a brand. With Trump Tower, I created something people wouldn't forget. Something tall, bold, and impossible to ignore on the city's skyline. And honestly, that's how I saw myself too. Strong, powerful, unstoppable. But was I really as solid as the tower I built? As Trump Tower rose in fame, so did I. I became a regular figure in the media. Wherever I went, attention followed. Journalists wrote about me. Magazines featured me. I wasn't just a businessman anymore. I was a celebrity. People were drawn to my confidence, my bold personality, my style. To some, I represented success at its highest level. To others, I was something else entirely, a risk-taker, a gambler, someone who played big and sometimes stumbled. Because behind the shining glass of Trump Tower, there were real challenges, real risks, real debt. Building the tower had cost a fortune. I had taken on massive loans to make it happen. Interest rates were high, and while Trump Tower was successful, it wasn't enough to erase every financial risk I had taken. I was walking a thin line between triumph and danger. Still, I never let doubt show. To the public, I was always confident, always in control. And maybe I believed that if I acted that way long enough, I could make it true. I had done it before. I believed I could do it again. As the years passed, Trump Tower remained a powerful symbol. Celebrities visited. Politicians passed through. Business leaders wanted to be seen there. Everyone wanted to be associated with success and power. For me, the tower was a reminder of what I had already achieved. But I knew one thing for sure. I couldn't stop there. Trump Tower was only the beginning. I wanted more buildings, more towers, more success. And I wasn't finished chasing it yet. My ambitions kept growing and so did my confidence. But the bigger my dreams became, the higher the stakes rose. By the late 1980s, I was expanding fast. New buildings, new casinos, new ideas. My vision had moved far beyond New York. I wanted an empire that stretched across the country, maybe even the world. I invested in hotels, resorts, and casinos. Every new project added power to my brand. My name grew louder, more recognizable, more valuable. But with every deal came more loans, more debt, and more risk. The media started asking questions. Was I pushing too hard? Was I taking on too much? I heard the doubts, but I ignored them. I kept moving forward. To me, these weren't risks. They were opportunities. I truly believed that no matter what happened, I would come out on top. But as the 1980s came to an end, the financial world began to change. The economy shifted. Pressure started building. On the outside, Trump Tower stood tall and unshaken, still shining over Fifth Avenue. But behind the scenes, cracks were forming. My casinos in Atlantic City, along with other investments, were starting to feel the strain. I didn't fully realize it yet, but a real crisis was coming. One that would test not just my business skills but my character. For now, Trump Tower remained a symbol, a reminder that I was here, that I had made my mark, and that I wasn't going anywhere. My name had become a brand. My presence could be felt across the city. Trump Tower wasn't just a building. It was a statement, a promise, a challenge. By the late 1980s, I was at the height of my fame. My name was everywhere. Hotels, casinos, airlines, magazine covers. I wasn't just a businessman anymore. I had become a brand, a personality, a force. I moved through New York City with confidence. Powerful. Calm. Unstoppable. I believed I had what people called the golden touch. It felt like everything I touched turned into success. But was it real? Or was it just an illusion? As my empire grew, so did my appetite for risk. One win was never enough. I wanted more. Bigger projects. Bigger statements. Bigger rewards. In Atlantic City, I built the Taj Mahal Casino. A palace of marble and gold. I proudly called it the eighth wonder of the world. Inside, everything sparkled, huge chandeliers, marble columns, rich carpets. It was pure luxury. To me, the Taj Mahal wasn't just a casino. It was a symbol of power, of vision, of success. But there was a problem. This palace was built on mountains of debt. To finance it, I borrowed hundreds of millions of dollars. I signed deal after deal, promised big returns, and believed the casino would pay for itself and then some. I was confident it would work. But it didn't go as planned. Competition in Atlantic City was fierce. Other casinos were fighting for the same customers. Month after month, the profits didn't meet expectations. The debt kept growing, and people started whispering. Maybe this time Trump had gone too far. I didn't show fear. I didn't show doubt. To the public, I was still confident, still strong, still winning. I attended high-profile events, gave interviews, appeared on magazine covers. The world saw a bold man, a risk-taker, a winner, and I believed it too. I refused to accept failure, because in my world, failure was never the end. It was the beginning of a fight. I was Donald Trump, and I believed I would always find a way to turn things around. But behind the polished image, problems were quietly stacking up. Cracks were forming where few people could see them. Lawsuits started coming in. Contractors said they hadn't been paid. Workers complained about unpaid wages. My casinos became surrounded by controversy, with critics accusing me of playing unfairly. The newspapers were full of stories, some still praising my boldness, others openly questioning my methods. People were divided. Some admired my confidence. Others began asking a dangerous question. Was I really untouchable? Or was I heading straight for disaster? Around the same time, I had stepped into a completely different industry. Airlines. I bought Trump's shuttle, promising luxury travel for business passengers. The planes looked impressive, gold details, elegant seating, my name proudly displayed on every aircraft. On the surface it looked like success. In reality, the airline was bleeding money. Competition was intense. Profit margins were thin. Losses kept growing. And the debt from the airline, combined with my other ventures, became heavier every single day. Still, I refused to back down. I pushed forward. I signed new deals. I borrowed more money. I took even bigger risks. I truly believed my golden touch would save me. I believed my name alone could guarantee success. I had never accepted defeat before, and I wasn't about to start now. But as time passed, the pressure kept building. The economy was shifting, and my investments felt it immediately. Interest rates climbed higher, making my debt more expensive and harder to manage. Bankers grew nervous. They started questioning whether my empire could survive it all. There were endless meetings, long negotiations, tough conversations behind closed doors. I fought for time. I promised things would improve. I told lenders profits would rise again, that my name would shine the way it always had. Deep down, though, I had to know the truth. Things were slipping out of my control. By 1990, the pressure became unbearable. Massive debt, falling revenues, investors losing confidence. My empire was standing on the edge of collapse. The media, once fascinated by my boldness, began asking harsher questions. Was I a genius? Or just a gambler who had taken one risk too many? Headlines hinted at failure. They suggested that my so-called golden touch might have been nothing more than an illusion. But even then, I wasn't ready to quit. I went back to the banks. I negotiated relentlessly. I convinced creditors to give me more time. I restructured loans. I promised, again, that I would turn things around. I fought for every dollar, every deal, every day. Many people doubted me. I didn't let go. I believed in myself, in my vision, and in my ability to survive. Those years were brutal. Sleepless nights, high-stakes negotiations, constant pressure. To keep the empire alive, I had to make painful choices. I sold assets. I let parts of the business go. My lifestyle changed. My empire shrank. For the first time, I had to face a hard reality. I couldn't save everything, but through pure determination, I held on to what mattered most. The core of the empire survived. I made it through the storm, but only just. By the mid-1990s, I was no longer the unstoppable force people once believed I was. But I was still standing. And for me, that mattered more than anything. My empire had taken a serious hit. My reputation was bruised. And that golden touch I once believed in didn't feel so golden anymore. But one thing mattered more than anything else. I was still standing. Where others might have walked away, I stayed in the fight. I negotiated. I pushed back. I found ways to keep moving forward. To the outside world, I was still Donald Trump, the man who had come dangerously close to losing everything and somehow made it through. But the experience changed me. It showed me how quickly success can disappear, how unforgiving the business world really is, and how even the most powerful people can fall hard. For me, it became a lesson, one I wouldn't forget. A lesson I carried with me as I started thinking about rebuilding, about rising again. Some people looked at my struggles and said, "See? He's just like anyone else. He can fail. He can make mistakes." I didn't see it that way. I saw a survivor. Someone who could face disaster and still come out breathing. Maybe the golden touch had been an illusion, but my belief in myself was real. Very real. So while the world watched and waited, wondering if I would succeed again or finally fall, I made a promise to myself. I would come back. I would prove them wrong. I would rise again. Because for me, this wasn't the end. It was only the beginning. The 1990s arrived with a cold, hard reality. The glitter was gone. The grandeur felt distant. That golden glow of success had faded. What was left was pressure, debt, and doubt. My empire, once shining under bright lights, now stood in heavy shadows. Bankruptcy was no longer a distant word. It was close. Too close. And everything I had built, my business, my image, my life, was at risk. This wasn't the Donald Trump people were used to seeing. The man who once walked through Manhattan like a king was gone. The guy who turned dreams into buildings and buildings into empires was now fighting just to survive. Crushing debt, lawsuits, relentless competition. All of it closing in at once. The world was watching. Some watched with pity, others with judgment. Everyone was asking the same question. Could the man who once seemed invincible find a way out, or was he finally finished? For me, it felt like a nightmare. The Taj Mahal casino, my pride and joy, had turned into a financial disaster. Every day it drained more resources. My airline struggled. My hotels were under pressure. Even Trump Tower, my crown jewel, felt the shadow of debt hanging over it. Bills kept coming. Interest rates kept rising. Banks grew impatient. It started to feel like the chances were running out. No more deals. No more time. No more escapes. I was cornered. But I wasn't ready to surrender. Even with the pressure building, I stayed calm. I held on to my confidence, to my determination. To me, this was just another fight. A tougher one, sure, but still a fight I planned to win. I called meeting after meeting. Bankers, negotiators, investors. I sat face to face with people who doubted me and spoke with energy, with passion, with the strength of someone who refused to be defeated. I told them I could fix it, that I needed time, that I was still Donald Trump. The negotiations were brutal. The banks wanted their money back and they weren't convinced I could deliver. My empire was bleeding and there were no easy answers. But I didn't back down. I fought for every deal, every dollar, every ounce of belief. My strategy was simple. Keep talking. Keep negotiating. Keep surviving. Because as long as I was still in the game, the story wasn't over.